They were like, we want you to survive and thrive in a way that like we struggled with, and we don't want you to deal with these struggles, so that's why we're being this way. And I think like we all can relate to that.
The number one thing that I loved was something that I didn't know until the movie was over. It was directed by Gurinder Chadha. I noticed that when they ran the credits that she dedicated the film to her dad. And then reading that kind of that story that Jess's dad tells about moving from Nairobi to the UK and facing a lot of prejudice was her, like literally her dad's story. He lived there, he moved there, and he had the same struggles.
Our team even won the East African Cup. But when I came to this country, nothing. I was not allowed to play in any of the teams. And these bloody Goras in their clubhouses made fun of my turban and sent me off packing.
It's just so clear that these are real experiences that she pulled from.
I found so many similarities between Jess's family and the kind of family that we grew up in. We're not privy to like the whole big backstory of Jess's family and life. Like, did everyone come over from Nairobi or just her, her dad's family? But whatever the situation was, they had family in this place where they ended up settling, and which is exactly our parents' story. They came here from Italy. They're immigrants, came to America, and they had family that was already living here. I think they were kind of like the last group. We, of course, had many gatherings that were just our aunts and uncles, so our parents and their siblings and their kids, but also many, many gatherings of their bigger family that looked a lot more like what we're seeing in this movie, with lots of, extended family, and really like any Italian person is like, yeah, they're related to you. Like, don't, like, don't worry about it. Which is kind of the vibe that, that I got from this. And just, from what I do know about Indian culture, I don't know how much Indian culture differs in the United States versus in the UK, but I think it's just one of the things that I've always loved the most about Indian families is just how they really feel like such a unit. I love how the kids call their elders like auntie or uncle. I know we see the flip side of this in really not having privacy, like everyone's kind of like in everyone's business, but the positive of that is that you're always, because there's so many people, like there's always something to celebrate, and they do celebrations so well.
I love the number one most important thing is like respecting your elders. And there are extremes to that, right? And that's like, Jess's whole character development of like, well, some of these rules are way too strict and I need to bend them because they work for me. And like, in a way, she was able to kind of like change her family and their views to kind of like see that the end goal is like, yes, we've been through pain, but we have this future and we all deserve happiness. And this is what Jess is looking for. We're going to kind of come together and support her by the end. So I thought like she did a really great job of wrapping that up.
I'm joining a girls' team. Huh? They want me to play in proper matches. The coach said I could go far.
So in Jess's situation, it's very much her family's like, you have to meet a man and you have to get married, and then you can kind of figure out what you want to do from there, which I actually think is a lot of how we grew up as well. We kind of grew up in a definitely more strict households. We couldn't do a lot. So there's a lot of, I think, elements that I definitely connected with in this movie. There's kind of these like identity crises in a way, especially for like younger women. And then even more so if you're at Jess's age. And I loved to see her create this character who is so like, she's like, no, this is who I am. And this is what I feel comfortable with. And this is what I am interested in. It was so apparent from the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie. And I
Yeah.
don't think that we get enough characters like that to look up to
Yeah.
and have as role models. My favorite scene is also the dad, which kind of ties it in a knot, Michelle, of the dad telling his backstory, but how he like leaves it off. I like always get emotional during this part where he kind of says like, I suffered, but I don't want Jesse. He calls her Jesse too. I don't want Jesse to suffer. And he's basically saying, like, I want her to have her dream and, like, she shouldn't need to be, held back.
I don't want her to make the same mistakes that her father made of accepting life, accepting situations.
Just because of, like, our experiences.
You could feel the love, even though it was, like, twinged with, like, a lot of disdain. Like, it was all coming from love. Like, her mom and her dad, like, they were like, we want you to survive and thrive in a way that like we struggled with, and we don't want you to deal with these struggles, so that's why we're being this way. And I think like we all can relate to that, coming from like a very traditional type of like family from Italy, where it's like we're doing this out of love, even though it feels like we're trying to like suppress you and don't want you to follow your dreams. Like, we're doing this because we love you and you'll thank us later. But I think the nice thing about this film is like it didn't make them the villains, and yet there's still an opportunity for compromise to be had. I just felt like it was like a love letter from Grinda to her family, but also a kind of like a, hey, I became this director and like did something different, and that's okay.
Yeah, and then I liked having that little bit at the end of the dad and Joe playing cricket together. So I like to think that like Jess inspired her dad to go after his dream as well. It's not too late.
This movie is like part of who I became as a person. No, but there was, remember the boys team that was at our hotel?
Oh my God, give us seats.